When I hear bubbles, I'm like, no more bubbles. I don't want to participate. Welcome to this week's market moment. It has been a moment of all moments. There's a lot of stuff happening. So I'm really excited to hop in and talk about what the heck is going on with the numbers, because you know I'm a data nerd and I'm all about them facts and data. Throwback to 2007, both Scott and I participated very different ways. So we'll talk a little bit about that and why this is so different from last time. Yeah, Gallegos with the XP Realty and Scott.
Hey,
Scott, who are you
everybody.
with?
Yep, I'm Scott. I'm with Synergy One Lending.
Awesome. All right, so let's go ahead and hop right in. Last week we talked about month over month, but I want to get a little bit more granular this week. So this week, I'm going to tell y'all what's happened the past 7 days. It's going to start just right out the gate because it's the big news topic that I've seen quite a bit is price reductions on houses. And you're going to be quite surprised. We've had 1,449 price reductions this week. Last week, we had 1,729 price reductions. So the number of price reductions has actually gone down, which means people are starting to understand like where they need us be in terms of pricing. I think that there's not as much fear that's happening right now in the market as there was maybe last week. Things are starting to feel more normal with the interest rates. I think people are kind of settling in and feeling like, okay, well, I really need a house. And sellers are like, okay, I really need to sell. And so they're kind of meeting in the middle. That's what's really interesting in terms of like price reductions. From this past 7 days was about 801 closed homes. And of those closed homes, the average list price for in the Denver metro area was $688,376. Closed price was $679,952. So we're still pretty close from close to list. We are closing at 98.9% to list price. Not pretty ridiculous price reductions. So I bet a lot of those price reductions are a 1 or 2% price reduction, maybe like $4,000 or $5,000. And then what's probably happening, and Scott, you could probably, I don't know if you're seeing this, but maybe sellers are offering concessions. And so that actual close price is still staying a little bit steady. Are you seeing that right now?
Yeah, it's a great point. And we talked a little bit about it last week as well. The average seller thinking that we're still in a market of March or April. So I wonder if those new stats are indicative of people understanding the new market. So maybe they're pricing their homes a little bit better, or they're maybe listening to their real estate agent a little bit better. So not seeing as many kind of price reductions. But yeah, a lot of times when we have the conversation with the buyer and agent, and we're like, hey, the home is listed for $750, we want to come in at $730. Like, we know we have opportunity to try to get a deal, right?
Right.
We circle back with that conversation and say, hey, that's a great idea. However, why don't we just offer them $750 and we'll take $20,000 in credits and in seller concessions, right? Because $20,000 amortized over 30 years on your loan is pretty minimal. It's not going to have that big of an impact, right? Maybe $8 or $9 on your payment, but $20,000 as a credit to be used towards buying down your interest rate could have $100 or $200 of payment relief just by buying down the interest rate. So 9 out of 10 times right now, we are seeing the majority of our contracts come through with some type of seller contribution, and it's being articulated to the seller in that way. Like, hey, we have some buyers here that would love to buy your house. Unfortunately, the rate market isn't in their favor right now. We're going to ask that you help contribute to buying down their interest rate to entice them and give back to them to want to buy your house. And so 9 out of 10, 9.5 out of 10 times, almost every contract has got some type of seller contribution, understanding it's going towards the interest rate.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. And I'm seeing that too, like in terms of negotiations throughout the contract. So
Mhm.
even if we're not seeing those seller concessions at time of going under contract,
Yep.
we're starting to see them remember, if we talked about last week, where inspection objections are back on the table. And so a lot of times we're starting to see some of those come in terms of, credits. I also have seen some listings on the market where they are incentivizing the buyer to do a quick close or go under contract by a certain date. So I just had a closing last week where the listing agent or the seller was offering a $5,000 concession if the buyer would go under contract that weekend at list price and close by X date. And so we were able to meet both those terms. And then in addition, we were able to negotiate some additional concessions on inspection. So it's pretty interesting to see, like the close price is staying fairly steady, but we're starting to see some of those credits on the back end. There is some opportunity for the seller because home prices still have increased 8.4%. So it's still advantageous for the seller. So a lot of sellers that really need to sell in this market. So again, on both sides, it's advantageous for the seller. On the buyer, it's advantageous because when someone is on the market, they are not playing the rate or the increased game. A lot of times what they're doing is they're listing their home because they have to move. They genuinely have to upsize, downsize, whatever the situation may be. It's actually for a personal need or desire, as opposed to trying to play the market. Last week, we talked about 17 days on market. When I'm looking at the closed listings that closed in the past 17 days or the 7 days, we have an average days of market of 28. So it's almost a month. It's a lot different than what we saw, last month. So it's, no, I wouldn't say significantly, but it's a decent amount. It feels significant. So it's going to feel really significant when you are used to seeing houses sell right away. So really again, it's not very glamorous data, but it's data. It's the information that's out there. We are seeing some evening out of the market, but it's still a seller's market. There is opportunity for buyers, a lot more negotiation. But when you look at supply and months of supply, we're still in a seller's market.
I always talked about the uniqueness of the markets and the timing that we're in, and how the market today is very different from the market of March or April or May. And we keep talking about we're trying to get back to this normalcy, like we're getting normal. And you just dropped a stat on how long a house has been sitting on the market. Is that normal? Isn't that a normal number? Like if you were just taking out all of the equations of the wonkiness of what markets we've been in, but in a normal market, how long would it normally take? Isn't it like a month to 3 months or something like that? What's a normal stat for time on market?
Normal is anywhere from 34 to 38 days. So it just depends on the neighborhood. So that's pretty normal. When things start to shift into a buyer's market, it'll go up about 20 more days.
Okay.
So we're still pretty normal. We're pretty even, actually. So we're still in the seller's market, but we're heading or trending towards even. I wouldn't say we're flipping yet, but we are definitely trending towards even.
Cool.
So what are you seeing on the numbers side, Scott, like on the financing?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to the rates, and that's always the magic question everybody asks, what's happening with the rates? Where are they? What's going on? You kind of alluded to it, like it shifts constantly throughout the day, throughout the weeks. We know that the number one driver of our interest rates is inflation. And that's the number that is going to keep driving our interest rate market. But what you're starting to see is it curve, right? So the inflation number is basically a 12-year average, or a 12-month average. And so as we come out of September into October, we're going to be replacing September 2021 with September 2022 number, and same thing in October and November and December. And so those numbers are starting to be better than the year over year number. And so you're going to start to see that curve slowly start to top out and start to curve back down. So that will have an impact in our favor. right now, you know, inflation is still high, and we know as a country, to combat inflation, we're going to raise interest rates. And time again, that's just kind of how our government does things. And so you will start to see it curve. You will start to see it come back down as we get into the fourth quarter, the first quarter of next year. You know, Fannie Mae has come out and said we will have interest rates back into the fours in 2023. Now, we don't know when in 23, but ideally that is the direction that we're headed, which is good news, right?
Right.
We still don't know how fast that will change. And typically, as we just kind of saw, rates will rise quickly, right? And they'll fall slowly. So I would imagine as we start to get better inflation numbers and we start to replace year over year inflation numbers, we'll start to see that curve slowly go down, and then I'll start to have a more positive impact or a decline in our interest rates as we move into next year.
Yeah, which is awesome. I can't wait. I think that's what I hear as a real estate agent, or if I was a consumer that was afraid to step into the market. We talked about this last night, last week. If you love the house, prices are going to continue to increase. So if you can afford the house now, get in the house now. And then if it's your forever home, refinance when they go down. You can always do that. I've done that before. And I mean, really, even if it's not your forever home, that's your first step to get to your forever home. What I hear, there's opportunity, lots of opportunity. Take advantage of where the prices are in real estate right now. And then later down the line, you can refinance. I think that's a fantastic opportunity for buyers. So
absolutely. I agree with you too. And if you are going to use, you know, any type of finances to buy down an interest rate or do certain things, you know, again, you want to probably try to do it from the seller standpoint and not your own investment. So if you were going to go spend your own money to buy down an interest rate, there's always a break even point, right? If I spend 10 grand or 5 and I save $100 and you divide that out, and that takes 3 years to recoup the cost of that investment. Well, if you restructure your mortgage within that 3 years, then you just lost that investment. So when we're doing this and we're shopping for homes and we're looking for a great deal and we're getting seller credits, we want to invest their money in the rate and hang on to yours.
Right. That's fantastic advice. I love that. Oh, let's talk what everybody wants to know about, because I'm sure everybody's really interested to hear. I am an elder millennial, so I have PTSD. I was part of both the technology bubble burst that impacted my job market. I was like making way too much money as a receptionist straight out of high school. And then I also was a party to the housing bubble. So when I hear bubbles, I'm like, no more bubbles. I don't want to participate. So I'm sure I'm not the only one. And I know a lot of Gen Zers and even like the typical millennial is still a little afraid about what we're hearing in the news. And so I want you, especially because you know from like, I can give my story as a consumer on the other side and how I'm dealing with my PTSD at the moment. I will say there's ample amounts of wine and coffee involved, but but it's not the same market, is it, Scott? It's a completely different market today than it was in 2007, 2008. Tell us a little bit about like why is it so different?
The number one question I always get is about interest rates and what the market is doing, right? The second one behind that is, are we in a bubble like we were in 2008? Is it all going to come crashing down like it did in 08 and 09? You know, the simple answer is no, it's not going to. It's completely different markets. And I was a part of, you know, that crash of 8 and 9. And what caused that crash was all of the bad loans that we wrote years prior. And so as I started my mortgage career in the early 2000s, I only knew what I knew, right? I only knew what was in front of me and the products that were available and the way that we could write mortgages. And what we had done during that time is we put a lot of homeowners, the majority of homeowners, into adjustable rate mortgages where the mortgage was fixed for 2, 3, or 5 years, right? We also had products of stated income and stated assets, which means I didn't need W-2s or pay stubs or anything. I could just write your income number down. Crazy.
So
right?
I could say like, okay, I make $500,000 a year, and you could be like, all right, good. Then you make $500,000 a year.
As long as it made sense with your job title, yes.
Oh,
right?
wow.
Hey, Scott, I want to buy this $800,000 house. And I'm like, cool, you're a little short on your income, no big deal. I'm going to make you an executive something of whatever, and you could raise that income. So, any loan officer could find success there, because as long as you knew how to do basic math, I need
Right.
your income to be here in order for you to qualify for this mortgage. Okay.
Yeah.
So you could write stated income, stated asset, adjustable rate mortgages that were fixed for certain periods of time.
Wow.
It was at a time in our economy where appreciation was through the roof as well. So massive appreciation. Interest rates were typically, most homeowners were sitting around an 8 or a 10% rate, and they had dropped down to about mid fives, right?
Oh, wow.
So the
That's good.
conversation was easy. Estrella, if I could, lower your interest rate, pay off your debt, and give you $50,000 cash out and save you money, like, wouldn't you want to do that? Yes, it was a no-brainer. It was the easiest thing, but we only knew what we knew, right? So hundreds of thousands of mortgages were written, month after month after month after month, right? And this was the norm. Well, what happened was, we had the conversation with the consumer of, hey, don't worry about it. We're going to refinance that property before it goes adjustable, Well, what happened was people forgot, right? And in a sense of, after that 2-year or that 3-year or 5-year mark, your low interest rate that you were at went fully adjustable, right? And so it went from a 5 to maybe 6.5 or whatever the rate really was. And it happened at such a fast clip that people couldn't refinance out of it fast enough. And you start to see a very high foreclosure rate, right? Because the products had changed too, right? There is no more stated income, stated assets. So now you have to prove your income through your W-2s and your pay stubs, and you technically can't afford the house that we put you into because we stated your income before. And so in hindsight, when you think about that, like, how could that have ever been a product that you could use on a consumer? How is this ever a good idea? Right?
It was so crazy. I remember, like, I lived in Green Valley, and I lived in a new build area, right? So all that happened, like, we closed, and like 2 days after I closed on my house, it happened, right?
Yeah.
And I was like house number 2 in this new build community. So for years, it was just empty lots. It was so creepy. I mean, it was great going to the community pool and being like one of 5 families, but my home value plummeted, everything. And even though I was lucky enough not to like get an adjustable rate mortgage, we did a 30-year fixed, but man, like, it was scary. It was really scary, like, knowing I was upside down in my house. Which typically, when you think about like your house, it's thought of an asset, not a liability. And during that stage, it was like full on liability. So it's crazy.
Super crazy that the product even exists. And so what happened is, just month after month after month, all of these, mortgages became fully adjustable. The payments went up $300, $400, $500. People couldn't refinance them fast enough. The market shifted so quick that the foreclosure rate was through the roof. And the whole industry just came crashing down, right? So that's the bubble. That's what popped. And now we don't have that. All of the lending rules and guidelines and regulations changed since then. There is no stated income, anything. There's no stated asset, anything. You have to prove your income through W-2s and pay stubs or tax returns and show that you can financially afford the house. That's not the problem we have today, right? We have an inflation problem. We have a higher interest rate problem. We still have the demand to be a homeowner, and we still have low supply. So it's not going to do in 08, 09. It's just not. It's just going to slow down for a little bit and become normal and those kinds of things. But we are definitely not in in a bubble popping scenario.
Yeah, we definitely went from like speed racer and like zooming around to now lowrider stage where we're cruising.
Yep.
We're like just cruising.
The one product that I'm still crazy that existed, it was called a pick-a-pay loan. And you had 4 choices on a mortgage payment. You could do a 30-year fixed mortgage, a 15-year payment, an interest-only payment, or a negative amortization payment. And so everybody went with the neg am payment because the appreciation was so high. Like, hey, your home's going to appreciate $5,000 today, in a month. And even if you make less than interest, so every time you made a payment, the balance of your mortgage would go up. But no big deal because the appreciation is so high, it's always going to outclip you. Well, eventually that course corrected itself and the balance of your mortgage was higher than the worth of your home. You couldn't refinance it. You couldn't.
And is that so you're saying that's happening now still?
That was an old loan that we could put people into. And so every time you made your mortgage payment, your balance went up because you're paying less than interest.
Holy moly.
Right. So the home is appreciating so high and you can kind of follow it, but eventually that flip-flop real quick. So you borrowed $500,000 on your house and at the end of year 1, you owed 510.
That is.
How is that a product that's even like for the smart people of our economy and our government of this world? Like, how would that even be a thing that we were allowed to do? So
that's just stupid. I'm sorry.
Bad loans, stuff is what caused our previous problem. We don't have that anymore. Those products don't exist. You got to use W-2s and pay stubs and tax returns. There's no any of those things that'll put us into that same position. Crazy.
Nice. I'm really excited about that. I think that's just stupid. I can't even think of a better word. Just stupid.
Stupid. The perfect word.
Stupid.
Right.
Yeah. Because luckily, we're much smarter now. Like you said, you have to have tax returns, W-2, you have to prove your income. You have to prove you can actually afford the house.
Yeah.
There are programs out there, but you still have to be able to afford that payment regardless. So I think that's what's really, really good news from a finance side and really shows why we are not in that old housing bubble.
Correct.
From a real estate side, what is interesting is that when you look at 2007, just looking at the housing supply, we had an oversupply of houses in 2007. So there were more, there were more houses out there. So buyers had a lot of opportunity. They could take their time, coupled with those crazy loans. So it was really interesting when we look at oversupply now in comparison to now, we have an undersupply of homes. We have more buyers than there are homes available. There was a lot that contributed to that. Obviously, I think a lot of the builders, or I know a lot of builders are much more conservative than they were back in 2007, coupled with the shortage of just general supply. Every industry right now is hit with the supply issue. And so they can't get the supplies like actual goods and materials in addition to the labor. So there's 2 pieces of that is causing that undersupply of homes. And there was a statistic that I was reading this morning that was from Realtor.com. So the number of active listings is down 50% now versus 2007. So we are at half the housing supply of what we were in 2007. So that's always a good thing. I think the other thing that is interesting or really cool is that we do have so many people who have equity in their homes. So even if somebody is reaching a point with any kind of financial hardship, that financial hardship, if they're forced to sell their home, they won't be upside down. So the number of short sales and foreclosures should be pretty low. Now, there are going to be some people, to like your earlier commentary, where they just forgot or they just don't want to deal with it. And so they just let it get completely out of hand, and they're forced to foreclose or do a short sale. But there's a lot of opportunity. And if you are in that position where you are under hardship, I think if you are not able to pay your house. I'm always like, because I'm really like a big advocate for home ownership. I think home ownership is like a big thing for me and my family, and how it helped us step into where we're at now. But if I would much rather you leave with money than leave with nothing. So if you are in that situation, I think that there's a huge opportunity, just kind of putting that out there, that for you to actually have something instead of nothing. And I would much rather you be in that position.
Wow.
But yeah, it's really interesting. It's just not the same market. There's so many opportunities. Those of you who want to know a little bit more and you want to be able to crunch those numbers, I'm going to drop Scott's information. It'll always be in the notes of the video or pod, wherever you're reaching this information. So reach out to him and find out what those numbers could, you might be surprised. Like, remember, like a lot of times, like your interest rate, I know people say like your home is for your forever home. The average time someone spends in their home is 3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, if it looks at your overall like money in, money out situation, it might be worth it. So reach out to Scott if you want to know those numbers. And I think, like, again, I think the moral of today's message in today's market moment is chill. We're cruising.
Yeah.
We are cruising. We are no longer speed racing down the lane of housing and financing or mortgage world. We are cruising by. Things are getting steady. We are still seeing lots of opportunities for both buyers and sellers. If you're a buyer and you want to get pre-qualified and figure out what your numbers look like, you want to reach out to Scott, get your pre-qualification so that you and I can start to look for your home, get you into something. Let's make you homeowners today. If you're not a homeowner now, let's fix that. Let's make you homeowners. Again, if you want to reach either one of us, our information will be below. And I can also be reached on socials at Selling with Star on all of the socials. Scott, you need to get on social soon and come up with a social handle so people can follow you there. But in the meantime, our information will be in the notes section below. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Let's get you pre-qualified today. Thank you all.
Appreciate it. Bye, guys.
Bye.